Cast her out. The river will judge her. The whispers had started weeks ago, slithering through the market like venomous snakes. A curse, they hissed, a child of the night. Her husband, Chaik, a man whose love had once been a warm hearth against the world, now looked at her with eyes cold as river stones. He had not spoken a word since the child's birth, his silence a heavier condemnation than any accusation. The elders, their faces grim masks in the flickering torchlight, dragged Ebel to the riverbank. The rain lashed at her, each drop a stinging reminder of her shame. Abandonment, a gaping wound, threatened to consume her. She pleaded, her voice lost in the storm's fury, but their hearts were stone. The traditions of their ancestors, etched in the very soul of the village, demanded sacrifice. With a final desperate look at her baby, Ebel laid him on a woven mat and pushed it into the raging current. The river, a cruel goddess, snatched him away, swallowing her child in its dark embrace. Humiliation, a brand seared into her flesh, would forever mark her as an outcast. She watched, a silent scream trapped in her throat, as her life drifted away with the current. Years crawled by, each day a slow, agonizing march through the ruins of her past. Ebel became a ghost, haunting the edges of the village, her name a curse whispered by mothers to frighten disobedient children. Chaik, consumed by guilt and a gnawing suspicion, retreated into himself, his once vibrant spirit extinguished. The village, once her haven, was now a prison of her own making. But the river, in its mysterious depths, held a secret. The child, far from being lost, was found. Queen Amara, ruler of the river's merfolk, witnessed the sacrifice. Compassion, a rare bloom in her ancient heart, moved her. She rescued the child, his skin a shimmering pearl in the underwater world. She named him Ifiak, wisdom, and raised him as her own, unaware of the prince he truly was. Ifiak grew strong and wise, his heart filled with the magic of the river. He learned the language of the fish, the secrets of the currents, and the ancient songs of the merfolk. He was a bridge between two worlds, a prince without a kingdom, a child of two mothers, one lost, one found. Meanwhile, back in the village, a prophecy began to stir.
A white child, born of the river, would bring either great prosperity or utter destruction. King Ekin, Chaik's brother who inherited the throne after Chaik's mysterious illness, became obsessed with this prophecy. He demanded the river give up its child, believing Ifiak to be the key to his kingdom's future. Queen Amara, fiercely protective of Ifiak, refused. War, a bitter seed sown by fear and misunderstanding, threatened to engulf both worlds. The river, once a symbol of separation, now became a battleground. Ebel, drawn by the whispers of the prophecy, found herself at the riverbank once more. The years had etched lines of sorrow on her face, but a flicker of hope, long dormant, began to stir. She saw Ifiak, leading the merfolk, his eyes the color of the deep river, his presence radiating an otherworldly grace. And then, the shocking twist. As Ifiak and King Ekin faced each other, ready to unleash their forces, Ebel recognized a birthmark on Ifiak's shoulder, a tiny crescent moon, the same mark her child had borne. The river, in its infinite wisdom, had returned her son. The war halted, suspended in the stunned silence. Ebel, her voice trembling with a mixture of joy and disbelief, revealed the truth. Ifiak, the mermaid prince, was also the lost prince of the village. Betrayal, rejection, abandonment, and humiliation, the very forces that had torn her life apart, had ultimately led to this moment of revelation. Ifiak, his heart overflowing with a newfound understanding, stepped forward. He spoke not of war, but of unity. He taught the villagers the importance of compassion, the dangers of blind tradition, and the power of forgiveness. He showed them that true strength lay not in domination, but in understanding. He united the two worlds, human and mermaid, in a bond of mutual respect. He became a king of two kingdoms, a symbol of hope born from despair. And Ebel, finally free from the chains of her past, stood beside him, her heart overflowing with a love that had defied the river's cruel judgment. The river, once a source of sorrow, now flowed with the promise of a new beginning. The life lesson, etched in the very heart of their story, echoed through the generations, even from the deepest betrayal, the harshest rejection, the most profound abandonment, and the most searing humiliation, a future of hope, understanding, and unity can bloom. The river, in its wisdom, had shown them the way. The initial shock rippled through the assembled villagers and the ranks of the merfolk. King Ikeen stood frozen, his hands still outstretched, ready to signal the attack. He stared at the crescent moon birthmark on Ifiak's shoulder, a mark he had heard whispered about in hushed tones, a mark associated with the cursed child. Doubt, a seed he had long suppressed, finally began to sprout in the fertile ground of his fear. Ebel, emboldened by the undeniable truth, stepped closer to Ifiak. Tears streamed down her face, not of sorrow this time, but of an overwhelming joy mixed with the lingering ache of years of unjust suffering. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingertips brushing against his smooth, iridescent skin. A connection, deeper than blood, sparked between them, a recognition that transcended the years of separation and the chasm between their worlds. Ifiak, for the first time, felt a pull he couldn't explain, a resonance that vibrated deep within his being. Queen Amara, her regal composure momentarily broken, watched with a mixture of apprehension and understanding. She had always sensed Ifiak was different, that his connection to the surface world was stronger than any other merfolk. Now, the truth lay bare, shimmering like the pearls in her crown. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the gentle lapping of the river against the banks and the soft weeping of the rain-soaked leaves. Then, Ifiak spoke, his voice a melodious blend of the river's murmur and the human tongue he had instinctively understood since childhood. "My people," he addressed the merfolk, his gaze then shifting to the bewildered villagers, "for years, I have known only the embrace of the river, the wisdom of the tides. Queen Amara has been my mother, her love a constant current in my life. But today, I learn of another, a woman who suffered unimaginable pain, a mother who was forced to relinquish her child to the mercy of these waters." His eyes, the color of the deepest sapphire, met Ebel's. "Mother," he whispered, the word foreign yet familiar on his tongue. Ebel could only nod, tears now flowing freely, a torrent of emotions finally finding release. The years of silence, the weight of her shame, the gnawing emptiness in her heart, all seemed to lift, replaced by a warmth she had long forgotten. King Ikeen, witnessing this poignant reunion, felt a pang of remorse. The prophecy he had so feared, the white child he had sought to control, was not a harbinger of destruction, but a bridge between two worlds he had never understood. His fear had blinded him to the possibility of peace, to the shared humanity that lay beneath the surface differences. Ifiak turned to Ikeen, his expression earnest. "King Ikeen," he said, his voice firm yet respectful, "I bear no malice for the fear that gripped your heart. Fear breeds misunderstanding, and misunderstanding breeds conflict. But I have learned in the depths of the river that true strength lies not in division, but in unity. The river connects us, flows through both our worlds. Let it not be a barrier, but a pathway to understanding." His words, imbued with the wisdom of the river and the innate compassion he had inherited from Ebel, resonated deeply with the villagers. They saw not a cursed child, but a young man of extraordinary grace and wisdom, a leader who spoke of peace instead of war. Slowly, hesitantly, King Ikeen lowered his spear. The tension in the air began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. He looked at Ebel, her face radiant despite the tear tracks, and then back at Ifiak, the son of her sorrow, now a beacon of potential harmony. The days that followed were a time of unprecedented learning and exchange. Ifiak, with Queen Amara's blessing, moved between the two worlds, sharing the ancient knowledge of the merfolk with the villagers and learning about their traditions and ways of life. He taught them about the delicate balance of the river ecosystem, the importance of respecting its currents and creatures. The villagers, in turn, shared their stories, their fears, and their hopes for the future. Chaik, who had remained withdrawn and haunted for years, finally approached Ebel. His eyes, no longer cold, held a deep sorrow and a glimmer of regret. He saw in Ifiak the son he had never known, a living testament to his own blindness and the devastating consequences of unfounded fear. "Ebel," he began, his voice rough with disuse, "forgive me. I was a fool, swayed by fear and the harsh words of others. I abandoned you, and in doing so, I abandoned my own son. Ebel looked at him, her heart softened by the passage of time and the miracle of Ifiak's return. The scars of his betrayal would always remain, but the bitterness had begun to fade, replaced by a quiet understanding of the forces that had driven him. Chike, she replied softly, the river has brought us a second chance. Let us not dwell on the pain of the past, but embrace the hope of the future. Together, Ebel and Chike stood by Ifiak as he navigated the complexities of uniting two disparate worlds. There were challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. Some villagers clung to their old beliefs, their fear of the unknown a stubborn barrier. Some merfolk remained wary of the surface dwellers, their memories of the sacrifice a deep-seated resentment. But Ifiak, with his innate wisdom and unwavering compassion, patiently bridged the gaps. He organized gatherings by the riverbank, where merfolk and villagers shared stories, food, and songs. He demonstrated the interconnectedness of their lives, how the health of the river depended on the respect of both its inhabitants and those who lived along its banks. Queen Amara, initially hesitant, came to trust Ebel's gentle spirit and the genuine love she held for Ifiak. She saw in their reunion the potential for a new era of understanding between their peoples. The river, once a symbol of division, gradually transformed into a meeting place, a source of shared life and wonder. One day, as Ifiak stood on the riverbank, addressing a gathering of both villagers and merfolk, he spoke of the life lessons he had learned. I was born of fear and separation, he said, his voice clear and strong, carrying across the water. I was raised in a world hidden beneath the surface, unaware of my other heritage. But the river, in its mysterious flow, has brought me back to you, not as a curse, but as a bridge. I have learned that fear blinds us to the truth, that tradition, when unexamined, can lead to great injustice. I have learned that even in the deepest darkness, hope can survive, carried by the currents of compassion and understanding. And most importantly, I have learned that our differences do not define us, it is our shared humanity, our shared connection to this life-giving river, that truly matters. His words resonated deeply, echoing the journey they had all undertaken. The villagers saw beyond his shimmering tail and the merfolk looked past his land-bound feet. They saw a leader, a peacemaker, a son returned. Years passed, and the two communities flourished in their newfound harmony. Ifiak ruled with wisdom and justice, honoring both his human and merfolk heritage. The river flowed peacefully, a testament to the understanding that had blossomed on its banks. Ebel, her name no longer a whisper of shame but a testament to resilience and love, stood by his side, a queen in her own right, her heart finally whole. And then, years later, as Ebel sat by the riverbank, watching her grandchildren, a shocking memory surfaced, a detail she had long suppressed, a key to a mystery she had never consciously acknowledged. The night she had given birth, amidst the pain and fear, she had noticed something peculiar about Chike's reaction. He hadn't just been fearful, there had been a flicker of something else in his eyes, a strange recognition, almost as if he had seen a white child before. The memory, triggered by a chance remark from one of the elders about a traveling trader who had once visited the village years before her marriage, hit her with the force of a physical blow. A white trader. Chike had been fascinated by his tales, his descriptions of lands far away. Could it be? Driven by a sudden, chilling realization, Ebel sought out the oldest members of the village, those who remembered the time before her arrival. She pieced together fragmented stories, whispers of a forbidden encounter, a brief connection between Chike and a woman from a distant land who had passed through their village. A woman with skin as pale as moonlight. The truth, when it finally coalesced, was both devastating and strangely illuminating. Chike had known, or at least strongly suspected, that Ifiak was his own son, conceived during a fleeting encounter before he had met Ebel. His silence, his coldness, had not been solely due to fear of the village's reaction, but also a profound shame and guilt over his past indiscretion. He had allowed Ebel to bear the full brunt of the accusation, the humiliation, the abandonment, because he lacked the courage to confess his own secret. His subsequent illness and withdrawal had been a consequence of his tormented conscience. The river, in its mysterious way, had not only returned Ebel's son but had also unearthed a long-buried truth, a secret that had poisoned Chaik's life and cast a shadow over Ebel's suffering. The irony was bitter. The very man who had allowed her to be ostracized was the biological father of the cursed child. This revelation, though painful, brought a new layer of understanding to the events of the past. It didn't erase the pain Ebel had endured, but it provided a context, a reason behind Chaik's inexplicable behavior. It also highlighted the destructive power of secrets and the long shadows they cast. Ebel, now a woman of immense strength and wisdom, chose not to dwell on the bitterness of this discovery. She had found her son, and a fragile peace had settled over their community. The past could not be undone, but the future could still be shaped by forgiveness and understanding. The river, having revealed its secrets, continued to flow, carrying with it the lessons of betrayal, resilience, and the enduring power of love in the face of unimaginable hardship. The journey had been long and arduous, but ultimately, it had led to a place of unexpected healing and unity.